Hello, I'm Ronan Chris Murphy, and welcome to this little mini episode of Ronan's Recording Show. And I'm going to rant a little bit, admittedly, but it's for a cause. I want to talk with you about the dumbest piece of advice that I see on the internet that just will not seem to go away. So I participate in a lot of recording forums and on Facebook, many of the recording groups. And if you're interested in the one that I run, it's called Ronan's Recording Bootcamp Hang. Link in the description. But let's get back to stupid, dumb advice. So one of the most common questions experienced people are asked, or inexperienced people ask is, I'm looking for a vocal mic, what should I buy? Very rational, very core question. So in reality, the answer to that question is, especially if you're looking to buy a vocal mic for yourself or your most important client, you need to find a way to get that microphone in front of that vocalist and see how they work. Because a lot of times you get some surprises and you might have, a $3,000 microphone that doesn't sound nearly as good as a $1,000 or $100 microphone on that particular vocal for the style of record you're trying to make. But, that's the good advice. That is the real professional advice. The dumb, stupid advice is, oh, you're recording vocals, you need a condenser. Why won't this go away? It keeps coming back. And actually yesterday I was involved in a discussion about that, and some guy, I shared my opinion about this, and I was told that I was a smug jerk. And well, if I'm going to be a smug jerk, why not do it for all of you folks here? You see, the reality is, that's just bonkers. The idea that you need a condenser mic to record vocals is bonkers. It has no place in fact at all. It's the equivalent of saying, oh, if you're cooking with Italian food, you shouldn't use Parmesan cheese. Like, what the heck? Anybody who's cooked Italian knows that a lot of times you use Parmesan cheese and sometimes you don't. Because a lot of times dynamic microphones are actually a better choice than a condenser microphone. So that ludicrous, stupid advice that you need a condenser mic to record vocals, well, Madonna didn't get the message. Michael Jackson didn't get the message. Metallica, Bruce Springsteen, Bonnie Raitt, The Rolling Stones, Frank Sinatra, Radiohead, Björk, Slayer, Incubus, and on and on and on. U2 did not get the message. U2 can not only afford to buy a Neumann condenser microphone, U2 can afford to buy Neumann the company. Yet most of the recordings that Bono does are with a Shure Beta 58 dynamic microphone. So again, when somebody tells you that, oh, you have to use a condenser, just understand that that person hasn't a clue what they're talking about. On the other hand, if you spoke to a person who said, I really prefer condenser microphones, or the best results I've gotten have been with condenser microphones, or condenser microphones have really fit into my workflow, etc. All that is totally valid. Take that advice, process it, see if that applies to you. But anybody ridiculous enough to say that you need a condenser mic to record vocals has no clue about recording in a professional context. So there's a couple reasons why you might want to seriously consider dynamic microphones for recording, and in particular, to be geeky, I'm talking about moving coil dynamic microphones. The biggest reason is sometimes they kick ass. Sometimes they just sound great. If you told me you shot out two microphones and you had a $100 dynamic and a $2,000 condenser, and the dynamic was better, I'd say, that's cool. Glad you got one that worked. It wouldn't surprise me at all. So many times it's the best choice. A second reason to consider is if you're on a tight budget, which so many home recordists are, you get into about $100 in the United States, you're talking about a Shure SM57, which is one of the greatest microphones ever designed and built. And at that same price point, in condenser mics, you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel. So again, it is dynamics, about, that $100, $200, $300 range. You are in some of the best microphones ever built. And in that same range, it's the Wild West, and you're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel for that. So with a limited amount of money, you can get into the best stuff ever made. So that's one strong consideration. All inexpensive condensers aren't bad. A lot of them are just terrible, awful. Like, I can't believe any manufacturers would ever put them on the market. They sound so bad. But there's some exceptions. SE makes a mic called the X1 that I own a couple of and actually use on a regular basis. A company called Roswell Pro Audio. They're not a cheapo company, but they do have some lower price models, and everything they make kind of punches above its price point. And again, a couple others. And even some companies like MXL make some pretty good inexpensive mics and some terrible inexpensive mics. So it's a crapshoot. But in dynamics, in that lower end of the price point, you're talking about the Shure SM57, the 58, you're talking about the EV RE20, Shure SM7, Sennheiser 421. Amazing, amazing microphones at the low end of the scale. The other reason we might want to give this consideration is, generally speaking, your dynamic mics will actually have a little more focused polar pattern in terms of what they pick up. So a nice condenser, even when it's in cardioid, will tend to pick up more ambient noise around what you're recording. And some of that's beautiful, like in a church recording classical music, that ambience is core. But if you've got a crappy sounding room, or you live next to a busy street and don't have soundproofed windows, or you've got, the air conditioning going, or other musicians that you don't want picked up in that mic, a lot of times the tighter polar pattern of something like a Shure SM57 or an EV RE20 will actually eliminate a lot of that. So many times, even if you had the budget for a bigger microphone in your particular circumstance, that kind of more focused polar pattern of a moving coil dynamic can be an improvement. Again, the caveat needs to be that there are variations on all of these mics. So, but as a general rule, that's something you can kind of expect. So it has the advantage of low cost, sometimes just kicks ass and is way superior to other options. And if you're doing things like recording in a bad space or outside, which I actually do a lot, those microphones can kind of do you some favors. So in reality, I have lots of mics and I work in studios all over the world with big mic cabinets. The four mics I probably use the most for recording vocals are Shure SM57, Shure SM7B, Shure KSM32. I'm not a Shure endorser. They just make really good mics at good price points. And the Perlman TM1. So those are mics ranging from about $100 to a couple $1,000. And those are kind of the four mics I tend to use. But of course, if I have the time, I'm shooting out mics, and and sometimes even some cheap condenser that I dismiss will actually work right for a vocal we're recording. Or sometimes, I'm in a studio that has a Neumann's worth tens of thousands of dollars. And even in that situation, many times I'm picking a mic that costs less because it suits the sound and the vocalist better. So that's my little mini rant. And not just, again, really important that I'm not saying you should use dynamics. What I'm saying is, for vocals, I'm saying is that you should give them serious consideration, and giving them serious consideration is an extremely professional option to do. And anyone who tells you you should not use dynamics for vocals has no clue what they're talking about, and is probably just an amateur or a pro who just likes being snarky. So that's it. Hope this helps a little bit, and as always, have fun and stay focused on the music.